The worst horror movie I ever saw was fucking great.
Hello and welcome to This May Hurt a Bit. My name is James Strayer and this is
John C. Myers.
And we are a horror franchise podcast discussing each film in popular and not so popular franchises. And today we are discussing Texas Chainsaw Massacre from 2022. Quick, John, who has the rights to this now?
Lionsgate. No. Netflix. No. Me? Do I? Is it me?
It's you, and you're the bad hombre.
Oh, no.
This is all your fault. Moved on to Legendary Pictures. And the only reason I ever really noticed that is because as a young Batman fan in the early 2000s, that's who put out the Nolan Batman films. So I always recognize that. But it's just like there was another rights battle because the last people took too long and they couldn't do their 5 sequels like Avatar right after that last one that the public was clamoring for. So it went to Legendary.
Yeah, just really drug their feet at Lionsgate.
Mm-hmm. I know that John and I seem very hip and cool and young.
Yep.
And
I'm skateboarding right now.
He's right now. Yes. His hat is on backwards as we record. Mm-hmm. But I know that this one's going to be hard for me because it's going to stretch my feelings about, you know, today's youth. And I want to be as a horror fan as open as possible. And I feel like there's a whole podcast episode to be had to discuss like why 80s horror slasher youth are annoying, but not as annoying as today's youth. And I just feel like I'm going to be screaming, get off my lawn this entire episode. And so I apologize in advance.
I'm couching it more in the idea that like, this is what they think young people are like.
Very possible. Yeah.
I have to tell myself that there's no way these people are this. I mean, everyone's annoying when they're a kid, but like this specific way they handle certain things seems much more like corporate. Like, I wonder how much studio involvement there was in this, because there seems like, well, this is testing well right now. These themes are testing well. Can you work those in somehow?
Sure. Yeah.
And I mean, it's also that like if there is a more like if kids today are indeed more politically minded, this doesn't actually respect that.
Right. And that's
this is just like we're saying political words.
Yes. And that's the funny thing, because there's that element of you kind of want your, you know, it's the old trope in the slashers where the teens are annoying, so you can't wait for them to die. But a better slasher is like, oh, I actually kind of like those characters, and it's a kind of a bummer when they die.
Yeah.
Here, I didn't feel either one of those things. I wasn't excited, even though they were annoying. I don't usually feel that anyway.
Right. But I mean, usually there's like the guy you love to hate, like, you know, there's the asshole guy. But yeah, usually they're just likable enough that you want to still hang out. But
right.
You can argue, you could you know, turn anything into politics, really. Like you could make the argument has been made about Friday the 13th movies being sort of a more, you know, Reagan era reactionary kind of thing about if you have sex, you die. Yeah. It's that happening versus someone in the movie going, gosh, I better abstain from sex because not only is it against the Bible, which I believe in, but also I worry it would lead to pregnancy, which I'm concerned about. As I am not mature or financially stable enough to handle. Right. It's just lecturing at you about this stuff.
Yes.
Because then also, it's also just ass covering, because then if you're like, I put a political thing in here and it doesn't work, you can just go like, no, I just wanted to kill teenagers.
Right. Yeah.
And then by making the subtext text, you do the worst thing of all, which is denying me the chance to recognize something like, no, I get that. I'm very clever.
Did they use the word gentrification at all? In the movie?
At the very beginning, when they're going to town, the guy at the gas station calls them gentrifuckers.
Where y'all headed, if you don't mind me asking?
Harlow?
Oh, heard about you.
You did.
Everybody has. Y'all have a nice day now.
Thank you.
Gentrifuckers.
Instead of the Hicks being like, you outsiders, there, you don't like it. This guy's like, they're gentrifuckers. Yeah. I read Jacobin.
Right.
You know, I'm very active in left-wing spaces online. Yeah. Well, come on.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe it just seemed real stupid. Like, this movie politically is all over the map.
Right.
They both sides Leatherface.
Yeah.
I guess we'll say that. That just sort of encapsulates all of it.
Yeah. And a little bit of Richter, too. But, you know, I was rooting for it at points for sure. Anyway, the movie begins on a DVD menu, and it's basically playing a bunch of deleted scenes from the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre. which ends in a shot of Sally slamming the door and not wanting to speak to the press. So they really true crime-ify the first film.
That's an amazing concept. That is a really cool idea to deal with. Because particularly as it pans out, because it's showing on a TV, you can see that at this gas station, there's, T-shirts that's like a Texas with the turning into a chainsaw. And the guy selling memorabilia or something. Like it's this tourist trap thing, which they sort of did. Just speaking of Friday the 13th, they sort of did in Jason Goes to Hell, actually, where they had like the Jason burgers or something. They were cashing in on it.
Yeah.
And I think that's at least an interesting idea. And with the gentrifuckery that happens throughout this, that was maybe going to tie together. But instead, it just looks like, man, can you believe people would cash in on this? Yes, I can.
Yes.
Ninth Texas Chainsaw movie. Yes, I can.
Right. And I already have like a little bit of like a ruffled feathers about a lot of the true crime stuff that isn't worth like getting into. But just like I had a little bit of that sense of like, ew, you're taking one of my favorite completely gruesome films and turning it into a true crime situation here. But it is believable that would happen. Sure. In a small town.
God bless John Larroquette. Just what do you make another Texas Chainsaw? Catching.
Yes.
You bet. I will be there for it.
We find out quickly that Sally, if we don't remember, Sally, who has the greatest final girl exit to a film, in my opinion, of all time. She has now put her life back together somehow, and she's become a Texas Ranger. It's mentioned early on. She's been looking for Leatherface for 40 years now.
Apparently.
Yes. So we're getting this from the guy at the counter. The explanation, this cracked me up.
He was wearing a mask. Not easy to locate someone if you don't know what they look like.
I'm just like, isn't that the job of the cops? Or the Rangers, like your job is to find somebody who you don't know what they look like, but okay.
Well, it didn't say she was good at her job.
Fair
just
enough.
That she is that.
She's still been skating by for 40 years on this whole Sally thing.
Right. Yeah. I'm too torn to come into work today. I will take my paycheck. Though.
Right.
This movie really borrows heavily from the Halloween legacy sequel, the David Gordon Green Halloween that came out in 2018, I believe, in so many ways. And so many of like, just not only that it's a legacy sequel, which this series has already kind of done already.
Right.
And that like, no, we're wiping out everything and starting again. And it's way in the future, but it's the same people. And we're bringing back the final girl to have her stand. And they also, as we'll get into later, it really informs, I think, what they did with Leatherface in this one. Although it's been touched on a little bit particularly in the Platinum Dunes versions, they really Michael Myers up Leatherface in this one pretty good. Yeah.
And you touched on it briefly. Let's put the timeline. What timeline are we in here? We are sequel to the original, and that's it.
That's it.
Yes.
That's it. Everything else is this is yet another reset on the entire thing.
The legacy sequel, as they say. Now, what are your overall feelings on the whole bring back the final girl for one final modern movie?
I think it can be interesting. I don't think they did it well. I mean, Jamie Lee Curtis is a great actress and brings a lot to that character. But what they end up doing with her here, this time Sally is played by Olin Fuer, who's I mainly know from Mandy. She's been in other things.
Oh yes,
but she's really good in that. But been in a ton of stuff.
Yeah,
they just like hit some of the same notes of the Halloween of David Gordon Green's Halloween, but like without any of that backstory or character attached to it.
Yeah.
It's not in the Halloween legacy sequel. Jamie Lee Curtis has become this almost psychotic single focus. I'm going to booby trap my house, become this survivalist because it screwed me up so bad, which alienates the people around her and her daughter and all this stuff.
That's the best part.
This is just like, Leatherface, you turned me into a badass and you will pay for that.
Right.
And it just doesn't fucking work. And then when she shows up, it doesn't fucking matter. So
exactly. And I would really argue that as well as Alan might have done in this situation, fans are coming to this to see the actress just as much as they're coming to see the character. I don't want to see anybody but Jamie Lee in the Halloween role, of course. Obviously, Marilyn Burns tragically died in 2014. So, of course, that wasn't going to happen. But it was hard for me to be even remotely kind of nostalgic and be like, oh, yeah, there's Sally. There's Marilyn Burns,
Well, because it's also that's not the kind of for lack of a better word. That's not the relationship they had.
Yeah.
I mean, Laurie Strode and Michael Myers, they're a thing. They're related. Like he's obsessed with her. This is a whole thing.
Yeah.
They even make a point in this one that sounds like, oh, you don't remember my.
Yep.
Yeah, this does not matter.
Right.
It takes away his horror a little bit, that she's not just like, you know, in the previous one, she's like, she never spoke again.
Yeah.
Or that, you know, whatever. But it said that she's like, no, he's just another slasher villain. It makes it a lot less interesting than her just being like irreparably broken from this.
Right.
But the inner emotional states of people do not matter much in this movie.
Yeah. And I mean, I would be kind of pretty open to the idea of
take a firm stance like we do on this podcast.
Exactly. Kind of pretty open to a Nancy Freddy one last rematch. If you know, like that feels right to me. You know, I mean, I would absolutely be there. I mean, sort of New Nightmare, but like I'm talking like 2024, you know, one last ride before Robert
chasing each other around with walkers.
Yeah. Robert Englund complaining about putting on the makeup when he's 70, which I wouldn't blame him for, you know, like I'd be kind of into that because I just like Freddy and I like Nancy, but
he comes at you when you're napping.
Oh God. I do that a lot now.
Yeah. Oh, look out.
Yeah. But yeah, there's so much that didn't work for me about the Sally Leatherface relationship in this. And again, a lot of that has to do with the fact that that image of her cackling in the back of the truck will never not knock me over the head. And I don't want anything after that for this particular villain. It
just speaks to how so much of this stuff just doesn't feel very thought through.
We find out quickly that one of our lead characters, she has a bullet wound in her shoulder. I'm all for horror movies tackling social issues. It's been there since the 60s. Like I'm all for it. I am not down on, you know, making my horror political, but I'm also wanting them to just kind of do it well somehow. And this, granted, I'm not 20 years old and who has lived through the last 20 years of growing up as high school shooters are almost a mainstay in our culture now, which is awful to say, but like maybe I don't have the connection to that. So maybe this played better to some people. And I will give it credit for like, I haven't seen that in a horror movie before. It'd be cool if it mattered at all. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. They tie it to this thing like, oh, isn't this topical? But it doesn't really matter. Right. Again, just tying this to another slasher with Friday the 13th. You think about, let's say, part 3. And it's not like these are great movies. You know, I like them, but it's, you know, these aren't like that deep of things. You have Chris in the third one. That because it ends kind of like Sally too, where she goes insane, but she's had the previous trauma of Jason attacking her when she was a kid. Right. Yeah. So like that kind of thing from your past affecting you, that's been there before, but that at least like ties into something. This does not matter. At the moment they tie back in, it doesn't provoke horror, just empathy. You know, it's not really deployed very well. Sure. Because it's just immediately just like wrapped up and she gets over it. No problem. Very quickly. Yeah. Like I said, it just feels like these political buzzwords that they throw out at everything like gentrifuckers. Well, it's also, I mean, right around that sequence, we're introduced to another townsperson who I believe is Richter. And he shows up in his truck blaring metal, which, you know, I always hate that when the supposed bad guys are blaring metal. I don't like that. You know, they make some stupid joke.
Look at this guy. Who has such a small dick they need to walk around in public with a fucking gun? Like, I mean, is he compensating for something?
Yeah, and then there's a close-up on the exhaust coming out of his truck, and I was like, guys, just like calm down. Like we get this, please. Yeah. Taking brave stances about nothing is very important for this movie. So these 4 people we learn are going to Harlow, Texas. We're back in Bulgaria again. Oh, yes. For this one. They shot again in Bulgaria. So we're back there. And like, I guess the filmmaker, the eventual filmmaker, the director of this is from Texas. Yes. I believe. But he was not the original filmmaker. The original filmmakers got canned a week into production because they wasn't sparking, I believe is what they said. Ugh. Yeah. Bummer, man. Can you imagine being a Texan filmmaker? And you're like, great, I get to do a Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but I have to do it in Bulgaria. Yeah, in Bulgaria. And then like, it made me think of James Wan talking about, I was in different circumstances, but having to be on the back foot in terms of he had an issue with his citizenship or like his visa or whatever, getting into to make Saw.
So a lot of his prep work was kind of done on the fly.
Oh, yeah.
Didn't give us enough time. David Blue Garcia and he brought along the cinematographer, Ricardo Diaz. They were both just like, we got bullet points and, we're just kind of being dropped into it. So there's some stuff I can't fully blame them for, because I think, like I said, some of the script is pretty awful, and I can't even blame the script writer entirely for that. It just seems like, again, a lot of corporate involvement in this. But that certainly doesn't help.
Yeah.
It's not great. Like the way certain scenes play out or are staged, and just you can't seem to land on an emotional tone for the whole thing that works.
Right.
But so these people go to Harlow, Texas, because Dante and Melody own a food truck together. They're not together, but they own a food truck together. Like, he's the cook, she does something. Does their social media. Yeah, and then, he does all the business because he's the one in charge of the deeds.
Oh, right, there you go.
But she does give the speeches. So, but anyway, we learned from their Instagram account.
Hey guys, today is the day. We're finally giving birth to this crazy dream Mel and I had. Real change is here. So thank you all.
They basically have this plan to go to Harlow, Texas, which has been decimated by everything. Something. Yeah, late stage capitalism, I think the guy calls it, which is not even what that means, but fine.
Yeah.
That's more like industrialization, you'd think. But their thing is like, we're gonna go and we're gonna open a restaurant there, and we're doing this thing where we invite all these other influencers and social media people to come in and do open their art galleries or whatever.
Yeah,
I think it's extremely weird to be dealing with gentrification in a Texas Chainsaw movie. We did a little bit in that the Bone Boys, Kim Henkel's sort of offshoot.
Oh yes,
but. It's more that this plan is stupid.
Yes,
opening a restaurant or opening these small things in this like cheaper part of town. There's people there.
Yeah.
There is no one here, and no one is going to drive 7 hours to go have brunch.
He said 7 hours. Yeah.
Just so dumb.
Like
I just couldn't wrap my head around it.
Yeah. Like unless they got like a 12-year plan that they're going to create all these people or businesses and to draw everybody out and make this like little like hipster utopia thing. I have no idea who's your first customers. Especially if you're like $17 plate of eggs and hash browns. It made me think of like what like the joke I used to hear about Portland is that everyone just works at bars and restaurants and then goes to each other's bars and restaurants. Yes. Oh, the good old days.
Yeah. And like that worked because everything was affordable. You're in the middle of nowhere and no one's coming to accept you. Like,
how do you get your supplies out there?
Yeah.
Restaurants.
I mean, there are roads. They're just not very well, whatever. I'm sure they're brilliant and they thought it all through.
Yep.
It just seems pretty flimsy.
Yeah.
It's not what I expect or want out of a Texas Chainsaw movie, but like fine. I just think it's also handled very nebulously and poorly.
A sheriff pulls them over, not saying like he needs to pull them over, of course, but they make it a point to show that it's the sheriff pulling over our one black character who happens to be driving. So there's some tension there. He does say,
listen, some of us were born here, saw it in its prime. So please, be respectful for the town.
Hate to say it, cop's got a point. Like I think I am citing on the side of this cop saying like, hey, just like we've been here a while, that we know about our murderous past. Just don't mess things up for us.
Well, yeah, I know you're just trying to pick our bones, and help your stuff, but just be nice to people. Mm-hmm. Which that's fine.
Low bar.
I'm assuming you recognize that sheriff.
I did not.
That's William Hope, otherwise known as Lieutenant Gorman.
Oh, good gravy. Oh. Yep. Shoot, I should have known.
He always was an asshole.
Yeah. Oh, Gorman. Dang.
Yet another Gorman reference in Texas Chainsaw.
There you go.
Yeah.
Right? They pull into Harlow, and right here, I just thought that the soundtrack sounded like Mandy. Another Mandy bit right there.
Yeah. Well, the soundtrack for this is done by Colin Stetson, who's like a musician I really like. He does this weird circular breathing while playing the saxophone, and he can kind of just keep going on forever, like kind of minimalist stuff. Mm-hmm. He did Hereditary, for example. Like he did the music for the Hereditary.
So they show up and they talk to a contractor who, this is the guy I mentioned earlier, Richter.
You're planning to sell these?
Oh yeah, we will. Mm-hmm.
All right. So you guys are what, like a cult?
We're idealistic individuals who want to build a better world.
Yeah, that's a cult.
No subtext here. They're just like putting out there that they're these young idealistic teens ready to be sawed up.
They've had this tete-a-tete with Richter over the gun at the gas station.
Yeah.
And we find out the reason that Melody was kind of a jerk about it is because her sister was in a school shooting.
Mm-hmm.
But Richter's like, we've got feral hogs around here.
Yeah.
We got to shoot the feral hogs. That's why we got him. And then he later coal rolls them, and which is just annoying. Having been as a stylist, I've been coal rolled, and it sucks. It's also this weird thing when later Lila, when Lila kind of confronts him about it, because she's very ecologically minded as well. And it's like, yeah, that's weird that you would do that. And, with everything turning to shit and the climate change. And then his response is, I'm a grown ass man. I do what I want. So you got to consider that.
Yes.
Both sides.
Both
you got to think about it. Yeah. Because I think the movie really does that routinely, where it's like, yeah, but, she was injured in a school shooting and that's bad. But she learns that guns are cool.
Yeah.
So,
on the
what's to
one
be done?
side, exhaust went in their face. On the other side, don't mess with Texas.
It's the kind of the same thing. Yeah.
Even playing field. And weirdly,
respect all voices.
I'm still on the Texan side right here when looking at these people.
Again, yeah. I guess I should say the coal rolling's bad unless it's to these people. These characters.
There you go. Because it was also just like the way that they're looking at him and like being smarmy to him and stuff like that. I'm just like, man, you're losing me with the abject disrespect here.
Usually, yeah, because I think it's just there's usually one guy that sucks, but this is everybody.
There you go. Yeah. There you go.
The most I'm feeling is like, oh, Lilo's in a school shooting. That was terrible. That's it. Everyone else, I'm just still annoyed by everybody.
Well, it's like the in the remake, Jessica Biel she's fairly altruistic. Like she wants to talk to the people in the town. She treats, if I'm remembering correctly, like she's not disrespectful and talking down to them.
No, that was actually, but I thought I was wrong. I'd rather hang out with those jerks because they were having fun.
Right.
They were at least a fun group. Yep. And and in fact, a lot of what happens in the first one is we talk in the remake is the problems start because Jessica Biel is nice.
Yeah.
that's part of the issue.
Yes.
But these people just suck.
When you're condescending to the locals like that, my respect goes right out the window.
I think, I think the kids from Pumpkinhead had way more respect, except for the guy that, killed his son.
Right. There you go.
But the rest of them were cool.
Mm-hmm. They could see a Confederate flag hanging on the side of a building.
It's a tattered old flag in North Texas.
Yeah, exactly. It turns out this building is an orphanage. And when they walk inside, I did notice, of course, that just like in the Texas Chainsaw House, you got a stairway up the steps, like
immediately
on the right. And then you've got your portal here, to the point where I was like, okay, am I dumb? Am I supposed to be following that they built up a town around the entire Sawyer family home here for a second?
Yeah.
I was trying to track whatever lore that they were trying to put in place. Thankfully, no, that's not what happened. It took me a second, though.
Yeah.
Older lady carrying an oxygen cart comes out and rightfully asks what they're doing in her house. And this is where I wrote, look who it is. It's the board queen, because I couldn't remember Alice Krieger's name.
Yeah, it's to me, she's always the mom from Sleepwalkers.
Oh, yeah, there you go. Yeah.
I mean, she's just she's an incredible actor. Been in a ton of stuff.
She has run the orphanage, and Melody informs her that the bank has reclaimed the property and says she needs to be kicked out.
The bank reclaimed this property months ago. You're not supposed to be here.
You talking about that whole mix-up with the bank? That's been settled. I paid everything I owed. This is still our house.
You're wrong.
Her bedside manner in this whole thing is, again, ticked me off. And it's just like, you need to be out of here. So they've got this back and forth about her not having the deed. And so she keeps saying, I've got the deed around here somewhere. But then they decide, no, the deed's back at the office and it must be our mistake, which is a weird frustration to have.
Yeah, Dante can't find it. I mean, he's like, I'm sure it's back at the office or something, but we have this, the bank foreclosed. She's got to get out of here. Yeah, they ostensibly go in the house to take the flag down.
Right.
And she, in fact, tells them
that flag belonged to my great granddaddy. It reminds me of him.
So it's this idea that symbols are indeed symbols, and they only have whatever meaning we ascribe to them. And so her having this emotional, nice reaction to it, or this nice response to it, that makes her think warm thoughts of her granddad. It's loving thing. It's history that supersedes any historical or social malevolence the thing might have, or negative feelings attached to it that it might have. Instead of, the personal meaning outweighs the greater negative connotation.
Right.
And I say the same thing all the time about my lucky swastika.
Yeah.
No, it's fucking stupid.
Yes.
Like, that's stupid.
Yeah, it's
like
so
it's
dumb.
this the way it's this thing to try to make her seem like more reasonable and sad, but it's like you're already kicking an old woman out of her house.
Right.
You don't need to do this mealy mouth. Well, some people like the Confederate flag. It doesn't fucking matter.
Yeah.
What the fuck is happening?
Right. Again,
this is a Texas Chainsaw movie.
Again, this stupid down the middle thing that we have to have and respect both sides and all that kind of thing. And
and I mean, like, it ends up, for my personal political taste, I think so often it ends up more on the sort of conservative side of things. But with this mealy mouthness, it's more like, but Confederate flag's kind of cool. Why am I being lectured at is really what it is. It's like if you were able to just weave this into the movie a lot better, I wouldn't be nearly as irritated. More just like, hey, everyone, shut up a second. I have a point to make about freedom.
Come on, we're in a Texas Chainsaw movie, and this is the 9th one.
Get to chopping.
Yeah. Chopping and eating. Which I don't think they did, but we'll get there. At the top of the steps appears a very intimidating figure. He's the last of her boys, but he needs special care. So we can only assume that this is our new Leatherface. He's backlit. He's up at the top of the stairs, intimidating.
Yeah, and we've seen a photo with his face crossed out of him at the orphanage. Just let me say it again, that we saw him at the orphanage.
Yeah.
The Sawyer family exists. This is the first one. But he was also at an orphanage.
He's an orphan.
So he's like, hey, I'm a 35-year-old orphan. Yeah. My family all died. I got nowhere to go. Okay.
Is this
all right, movie.
A group home for adults that need help?
I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
I guess, is this even Leatherface then? Because that would explain, like, not that he would necessarily remember Sally anyway, because who knows what that guy.
Right.
But that would be hilarious. Like, no, this is a different gigantic psychopath that tears off people's faces.
He was doing a lot of reading up, and he just decided this is his
damn
new identity.
TV.
Yeah.
Yeah, it messed with his brain.
Cops come and remove her. She's having a heart attack, and just at that point, the most inopportune time for your bus full of investors and social media people to be pulling up. I've been there. You've been there. It's a tough
all the time
to have a heart attack there. They do make it a point of sending one of the characters with her in the ambulance to make sure that she's all right. What's her name again?
That is Ruth. Although it's funny because I was trying to figure out what a character was saying. There was a line of dialogue I just couldn't hear. It doesn't really matter. It was just a throwaway line. But I turned on the subtitles and rewound it, and when that character spoke, it was just Dante's partner. I was like,
no.
Oh, come on. They gave her a name. They clearly gave her a name, didn't they? No, it's Ruth.
After the ambulance pulls away, the two sisters start arguing about having to move there.
If you move here, I'm moving back with Dad. No, you're not. I don't want to live here. Your whole idea is insane. You don't know what you want. Okay, and you do. I know that you need me and that you can't take care of yourself. And it's an attempt at characters that was boring. And then I do love the next bit where we meet a couple of bank people, and they have some really great dialogue about needing some water. It's just one of those very awkward scenes of like three people standing around not knowing when the scene is going to be cut. And, it's just like, I could use some water. Yeah, it sure is hot out here. Nice, guys.
Just have fun with it. Just have fun with it, you guys.
Hey, we did one for us. Let's do one for you. Let's see where you land.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm thirsty and I want to not be here.
Yeah. It's genuinely hot as balls out here. Please.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, Bruce, it's a hot Bulgarian summer.
Right. In the back of the ambulance, Ginny dies in Leatherface's lap.
Yeah, because Leatherface comes to, and like we don't see his face. And actually, like they don't really make it a point to be like, whoa, look at his face.
Right.
Because you don't see his face.
Do we see him jump in the back, like all sneaky like hee hee?
He just walks.
Right.
I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
No sneaking giggle.
With a little xylophone, like
yes. Leatherface Sylvester.
and this is kind of a thing. There's like both sides in Leatherface, where and they've done this before, where it's like part of what's scary about Leatherface is that there's not a reason.
Yeah.
There's not specifically this moral or purpose driven thing other than like this basic survival and whatever evil that he's up to. But this is just like, well, they've done it now.
Yeah.
I tried to be nice, but they awoken the beast. Yeah. Like, you don't have to do that. You could just be Leatherface, man.
Right.
The idea that he was this insane avatar of chaos is like, yeah, and I got done with that.
Yeah.
And then I just, I decided I grew up for a bit. And then when I stopped being a child, I put away childish things.
I was exactly going to say that. And my childish thing was a chainsaw.
It was a chainsaw and someone's face that I put lipstick on.
Yeah.
Which I love that, like, one of her final statements to him is like, stay out of my room. Because I think later when he goes in there, like, he is putting on her makeup.
Yeah.
And was it just that, like,
you done doing this before?
Yeah. It's like, you're wasting my makeup. You don't know how to do it.
Yeah.
You've eaten half the lipstick.
Right. I've shown you some YouTube tutorials to get a smoky eye.
Yeah.
Like,
you can't contour worth shit, Leatherface.
Right. Blending is the secret, as Edward Scissorhands told us. Leatherface starts messing with the oxygen machine, and everyone around is getting kind of nervous, and that's a fair call. The cop holds out his hand to stop Leatherface, but then Leatherface breaks his wrist downward, exposing sharp bone, which is then stabbed into his neck.
Yeah.
The cop accidentally shoots and wings the driver, and then they all wreck. So here's our first kill, which I feel like this could be said a lot about this movie, but like, I might like this if this wasn't a Texas Chainsaw situation. To me, like, this could be getting real pedantic, but like, we've just seen movie after movie of what Leatherface does with his body and how he uses his space, and he's a runaway train. This feels like a gory John Wick,
Yeah, it's a little, it's the Equalizer.
Yeah, he's cutting. Oh, those bones look sharp into the neck. Yeah, I feel like a Leatherface would just like barrel into the guy.
Yeah, which is the first time I sort of thought about this being a little bit more Michael Myers-y, is that it is a little bit more, I don't want to say thoughtful, but like, Leatherface is a guy, for all this sort of flowery language I put around him about this, like, part of the horror of it is that these are just people.
Yeah.
He doesn't have superhuman strength. He's not a golem of any kind.
Yeah.
And the fact that this movie treats him as that is very strange to me. I guess it draws a little bit more from the remake, the Platinum Dunes verse ones, because that Andrew Brynjarski Leatherface, which was definitely more hulking and like powerful. But yeah, the fact that he's like just seems,
it's just more calculated fight scene to me. But I mean, again, it was kind of cool.
It was cool, but it just didn't
feel like a Leatherface kill.
Yeah, which I guess, to the Andrew Brynjarski credits, to that one, it's like, well, no, we're doing our own thing, though. So our Leatherface can be this, where it's like, you're a sequel to a guy who's now 60.
Yeah.
Like, is he just like up in his bedroom for 40 years being like, crap, like.
Right. Yeah. There's another scene now with Lila and Richter, and she does say straight out, why are you such a nihilist? And do teens talk like this? I don't know. He does say, I'm a Texan. I don't like people telling me what to do, especially smug, self-righteous city folks. So if you didn't understand where the lines were drawn, here are the lines. We have to know.
But like, they throw so much other stuff at this, because when the old lady gets taken away, he picks up the Confederate flag and gives it to Dante, just puts it to chest like, here's your flag.
Yeah.
I hope it was worth it.
Right.
Like, okay, just, these people are crappy for kicking out an old woman and causing her to have a heart attack.
Yes, that's it. We get more of her backstory here. And, this is where we get the full, she was in a school shooting, and Richter gives her a little bit of sympathy, just like, that had to have been tough. And which I took that at face value. That's like at least a little bit of a moment where like even a Texan can see that it was tough to be in a school shooting.
Well, I mean, that's the thing is because it's that he's the one that understands.
Yeah.
It's that these damn, young political kids, they don't get it.
Yeah.
But he's the one that gets that like, hey, I understand that you're a person.
Mm-hmm. Melody and Dante talk about a text they receive. Old Krieg is dead now. And Mel needs to go find Lila, who's hanging out with Richter. And Richter has given her a smoke. And like there's this weird connotation they might have slept together in like the 15 minutes that they've been alone. But no, he was just showing her his gun, his real gun.
Yeah. Like I don't, because I'm not sure, like she reads as young.
Real young.
Yeah. So times. I was like, oh boy, what's happening here? But
this.
no.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's not that.
Mm-hmm.
They're just talking about smoking and how cool it is. It was
this exact scene when, and it must be the lighting or something, but I did think like both of these two people look younger than our typical like teens in slasher movies.
Yeah.
Like they're like real young teens, and I didn't like that so much.
Yeah, well, yeah, I don't know if it's like, well, we actually cast age appropriate rather than like a 28-year-old.
I want my teens being played by 28-year-olds.
Yeah, I'm more comfortable with that.
Yeah.
I mean, there's something to that. Like, there's that scene in Terrifier 2 where Art the Clown is just beating a child with a belt.
Right.
And you're like, well, that happens in slasher movies, but like, that is obviously just a 14-year-old.
Totally.
This feels awful.
Really gross. Yeah.
I did like the scene where the truck has crashed. Ruth has come to.
Yeah.
And like has to kind of like quietly get the radio.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew it was going to end like this, but I like that there's just the shot of the radio on the other side and it just pans out and like no one is there.
Yes.
No one is responding. No one is listening. But eventually we figure out that it's at the gas station and the gas station attendant's like, oh, wait, he's wearing someone else's face.
Yeah.
I know who to call. So he gets on the Sally phone and calls up Ranger Sally, gets her involved. And she is on her ranch, like eviscerating a pig or a cow or something like that. It's like, okay, fine. She's tough. She's built for tough.
Yeah. So this whole sequence, I like that they tried to do something a little bit different, like a different location. We've got the poppy field. I kind of like the poppy field stuff, except for that one shot where Leatherface at the end of the scene, like comes up out of it, pops out of the poppy field. And it became like, yeah, that's your cover for the Netflix thing.
It was just like, this would be cool looking.
Yeah. And it's not. But we are getting shots of Leatherface sawing the face off of his orphan mother. And he holds it up and it's kind of a nice silhouette into the sunlight. Like some of the stuff is pretty good. Like
that's like in part 2 when they do that with Lefty's face.
Oh
yeah.
Yeah. So this all feels very much like a Texas Chainsaw movie and like a slightly different backdrop. This all works for me.
Yeah, it's like, all right, now we're kicking off. We've gotten we've gotten that all out of your system. Now it's Leatherface time.
Yeah. Ruth plays dead as Leatherface comes up to the car. And he just kind of arbitrarily bashes the sheriff in the head twice, which is pretty great. He's just like, I'm cleaning up the rest of the mess around here. Comes around back and just stabs her in the gut. And after she dies, he places her hair over the eyes, for whatever poetic reason here.
Yeah, that was an interesting little new feature of Leatherface, of him just being like, so pretty.
Yeah.
And then don't look at me.
And then, cut to him just standing up in the poppy field. So this is such a, this is the shot that we were talking about earlier. And this just made me laugh because, you've been on enough sets where you're just like, okay, we've got what we need. Now just do some cool stuff out there. And then they're just like, oh, that looks great. But it has no context within the edit of where they put it.
Yeah, but we got to use it.
We got to use it because it looks cool.
Because they do this thing again that the David Gordon Green Halloween does, where they're like, yeah, but it's the face, it's the mask. That's such a huge part of it, which is neither for these characters really. Like Michael Myers, I mean, we'll get into it when we get to that franchise, but particularly getting rid of 2 onwards and just going, oh, but it's the mask that's a powerful thing for him. When in the first one, it's just a thing he grabbed.
Yeah,
he broke it and grabbed him. It wasn't like, this mask speaks to me.
Right.
And him putting on another face, like they're just adding that's what's making him kill people, is like, that's when he's really Leatherface. He was fine before. And that's just not what that character was.
Yeah.
Like you just decided that's his whole thing and it doesn't really work. It's like trying this thing like, well, it's back to the bad old Leatherface. Okay.
And I mean, he would
he would put on different masks around the house in the first one, but for different kind of like tasks that wasn't always necessarily about killing. Like automatically when he puts on a Leatherface, that doesn't make him go into a killing machine mode.
Right.
You know?
Well, as we've discussed it, I don't think he was planning on killing anybody.
Sure.
But the people just kept coming to his house.
Right. And yeah, so if we want to take it even a step further, so he grabs the face off of this woman who's been caring for him and nurturing him and loving him. You know, we saw him in the first film have the lady face on, and that's when he became like the matriarch of the house. So if we want to get real like in depth about it, you could just say like, well, this isn't the face of a killer that he would be putting on.
Yeah.
Why isn't he going back to the orphanage and being like, okay, who can I help out tonight? Who needs some dinner?
Yeah. He's like, you know what? All these kids here that are trying to open up their restaurants, I'm gonna out barbecue them all.
I got some chili that they're gonna flip for.
That would be way more interesting than what happens.
Speaking of, cut to the grill opening at a party, and we get the iconic camera sound used as a fucking hinge sequence.
I got a kick out of that simply because I think the last couple, you know, we've seen a few of these that have just like overdone that.
Yes,
just gone nuts with it, and so it was just like, no, we threw it in here. Yeah.
The fact that they didn't keep using it, looking back on it, I would agree. That is funny as like a one-off joke. But
yeah, like that's like the one like bit of levity.
Yeah.
In this, because there's the moment later that we'll get to that infuriates me immensely. But that is just as a dumb joke. I was like, oh, okay.
Richter shows up and
again, a great moment for me to go, yeah, I got that. And feel smart.
There you
go.
Thanks, movie.
More of that movie. Yeah.
Richter shows up and takes the bus keys.
The fuck are you doing?
Heard you kill that lady.
We didn't kill anybody. She was trespassing on our property.
You sure that was your property? Huh? Looked like she disagreed.
Please just give us back the keys.
Show me you have the deed to that house. You'll have him back.
Kind of on his side. Did you run off an old lady and make her have a heart attack? Give me some proof.
Yeah.
You know, I need to stand up for this. They looked for the deeds. Dante says it must be back at the office, 7 hours away. Decide it might also be in the actual house. So they go looking, telling Lila, who once again, very much looks 12 right here, to sit and pout on this bus. Dante and Mel walk through the house. They're looking for the deed and, they're looking for the deed, and then they found the deed, and heaven knows, miserable now. It's just how my notes came out.
She finds it in this case on her, and like this like jewelry box on it, which is why would you keep a deed there? Every respectable house owner has a deed hole in the backyard. That's where you keep your deed.
You keep your deed in the deed hole. Like
you keep your deed in the deed hole.
Is it a deed?
You call the city. Well, there's a special, you call the city and the city gives you like, okay, here's where you bury it in your backyard. Because otherwise you would know exactly where to go in every backyard.
Right.
Dig up the deed hole. So they change it around and you get a special deed case that has some deed locks on it.
It's very much the case in Texas too. Like deed holes are all the rage in Texas. Anywhere down
Texas
south.
loves deed holes.
Crap, I don't have a backyard in my house, which I've always wanted.
You don't have a deed either, do you?
Yeah, I don't. That's a bigger problem.
When you get the deed, you get a backyard.
You gotta get a backyard. Oh, man. To live like a king eventually, I will.
Yeah. I owe money.
Yes. Leatherface appears behind Dante with a cleaver, and it's shot through the door as it swings. So I have multiple problems with this. Do I want a door slam right here? Yes, I admit I did want a door slam. The fact that the door just kind of creaks back and forth. And here's the big thing. And again, I know this is not how they wanted it to look. So I feel bad punching down on this, but it just looks like Leatherface is almost tickling him, sort of. Yeah. And the door is just sort of idly swinging. The door does not have enough force behind it to give that effect that I know that they're going for. I know exactly what they're going for, which is a cool idea. It just kind of just looks like the door is slow, like your cat walks through and it's just sort of like swinging a little bit.
It's very limp.
Yeah, it's a limp door swing.
Not much there for the drama of the scene.
No good.
Some of the attacks are obfuscated. So it does kind of look like he's tickling him.
Right. Mel is still upstairs, hides in a clothes closet, and Leatherface does eventually make his way upstairs, pulls a dress from it and takes it away. This is where he puts a little makeup on his face.
Okay, there's your mess thing. He was like, he's not that he wanted to kill, but he's like, look, I'm not allowed in her room, but she's allowed in her room.
Oh, there you go.
So this is all about Leatherface getting in that room.
Getting in that room, and now he can be the matriarch.
Now I can put on that makeup and eat that lipstick.
Fair enough. Okay, I'm turned around on this movie and turned around on Leatherface. 100%. Now we worked our way to it.
I made the mistake of watching this like a horror movie. And it's really just about a guy trying to put on some makeup, which in that it succeeds greatly in that department. Yeah, he still can't contour, but
he's still got a problem.
But he's on the path. Right. That's what matters.
He needs practice.
Progress, not perfection.
Fine. Yeah. He does see the bus outside. This does start to work a little bit in favor of the idea of people are now invading him in his space because he does see the bus. A storm starts up, ruins the party. Mel hides under a bed, and Leatherface immediately walks in, looking around. He takes a sledgehammer to the wall, and downstairs, Dante wakes up all bloody, hobbles out into the storm, and there's a party on the bus that he sees.
Yeah, Dante like waking up and walk around after taking a whole bunch of cleavers to the head is like, sure, okay. Yeah. I mean, it was a great makeup effect. It looked really cool.
Yes, yeah.
But it was like, oh, all right, I guess that's happening. And Richter stops him and is like, hey, don't walk away from me.
Totally.
Oh shit, you're actually very hurt.
But he does die there at Richter's feet. Bank lady is present and tells her to keep everyone on the bus. He draws a pistol and gets ready. And I was just like, man, I just want this guy to be more like Jack Reacher. Just because he just looked like kind of beefy and ready to jump in right there. So,
but he just need to be beefier.
Yeah, exactly. And taller, and reachier. Yeah. Mel is hiding under the bed still. Leatherface walks back and drops a chainsaw into the foreground right next to the camera. And so I guess it's implied that he had, walled up his own chainsaw, which took me 2 seconds to kind of to realize.
Yeah, which again, it's kind of John Wicky.
Yep.
I guess I'm back.
Oh, just when I thought I was out, they pull me back in.
They made me do it.
Pull that chainsaw,
Yeah, it's not like I'm a psychopath. It's just I have to.
Doesn't even have to oil it up or fuel it up or anything.
Of course not. It's been in drywall. It's fine.
In a clever bit of blocking here, she nudges a mirror so that Richter can see Leatherface hiding. But just as he notices, Leatherface attacks him with a meat hammer. Fucks up his leg real bad, which is
that was
cool.
A great shot. Yeah, that was great. I will absolutely give you credit for that one movie. That was brutal because he smacks him in the knee and then he bends the other direction, and it's
because you think Richter might make it further in the film. He's the type of character he's gonna help out Mel and Lila,
right?
Have a heroic death later in the film, but no.
Well, it's also sort of. Yeah, it's kind of what they're setting up, with this, well, look, we may disagree, but when it comes down to it, I got your back.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
And I mean, technically, he does come to help, but he's fucking useless.
He's immediately hammered down.
Yeah, he's hobbled just seconds flat, and it's pretty brutal. I will say, the gore in this movie is very gory. They do. I mean, it's Fade Alvarez who is the producer of this, and he did the Evil Dead remake, most recently Alien Romulus, and I know that Evil Dead in particular is bloody as hell.
Yeah.
And he was big on keeping that, which is funny because it's they even talked about in reading some interviews with these people, and it's the same thing with the guy who did Leatherface. The movie Leatherface, the second movie Leatherface, about oh yeah, how the first one wasn't actually that bloody. We said, what if it was?
Yeah. Sure. Yep. We're going to push it because that's what we want now. I did love that Richter tries to toss Leatherface out the window, but there's bars on the window. Yes. Haven't seen that happen before. That was pretty neat.
Yeah, and then Leatherface just casually stabs him with some proglass, which again, it just felt kind of Michael Myers-y. I think it's just because there's they've chosen to give him this expressionless mask. It's just sort of a downturned face, and his body language is not as frantic as we've seen in the past of 1 and 2.
Yeah,
and even 3, he's trying to be menacing, he's trying to be a monster. This is just casual John Wickian kind of murder.
Yeah,
I don't like this Leatherface.
Mm-hmm. He does end up just pummeling Richter over and over and over again with the sledgehammer. It's pretty gross. Rip that guy.
Yeah.
Sally shows up. Remember her?
to investigate the wrecked sheriff van in the poppy fields. So she's like 3 steps behind everything and not really doing much of anything. This is like, I mean, we're pretty far into the movie right now, and our final girl that we're supposed to be excited about is just like, she's barely a presence in this, and she's just so far behind everything.
Yeah.
She finds the back of the truck. She searches the poppy field and finds Ruth's body with a skinned face, but it's all posed and everything. And at first,
was that Ruth or was that Ginny?
Oh, sorry. Yes, that was Ginny's body. Yes, that was Ginny's body, and it's like made up to be a certain pose. Which at first I was like, well, that doesn't seem right. But then I remember all the furniture and stuff, so it might be a little bit of a throwback to that, I guess.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, it's like, well, if she like rigor mortis is like this, it'll be, I can just use the body as a chair as is. I don't have to do anything.
Right.
I'm older now. I'm tired. I don't have the time. I mean, I have the time.
You got the time.
I just don't. I'm
Just
tired. I
too
don't want
much.
to do this. Just if I could get a corpse ready made.
Yeah.
It's good enough for me.
It's all set.
Is the Pope coming over? No, come on.
We're not putting plastic on this couch either.
I'm not Scotch guarding Ginny. It's fine.
Right. Not worth it. Mel finds some keys, tries to walk down the stairs, you know, or like she just like jumps over the stairwell, which is weird.
She's trying to like quietly leave while Leatherface is.
Yeah, she's like, oh, well, that landing has a creak in it, so I got to worry about that now.
Yeah.
Leatherface appears full apron, throws a hammer at her, which kind of rules, and I did laugh out loud at that.
Because it's also just casual, just a vulgar display of power. Just boom, and it just sends her flying.
Bonks.
And it is kind of funny how ginger she's being, because as we've seen the layout of the house, like the door's right there.
Yeah.
All you have to do is just get out into public
and
be like, hey, there's this.
I bet there's rain noise coming down, and
they're trying to build tension, and it just it's the tension of get on with it.
She hides underneath some floorboards because she goes through the floor. And there's a good shot of Leatherface like sawing through the floor, chasing after her. Looks like a sewer pipe gets busted open. It spills open onto her, which is pretty gross. But
it's gross, and it's also just like
insult to injury. Yes.
Yeah, it's like that should happen like to the crusty old dean. Like, hasn't this person been through? And I know she sucks. We've talked about how she sucks, but it just seemed like that was an unnecessary thing that shouldn't happen to a character I'm supposed to end up liking.
Right. Sure. They try to get away onto the bus. Doesn't quite work out. The bus driver gets killed quickly, and his head is thrown back onto the bus. Leatherface never seemed that kind of like taunting as like a Freddy or I mean a Jason or a Michael Myers or something. So like he's never like, you know, thrown a head that I can remember.
He's not mean.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, that's not true because he tortures people. But yeah, no, that what you're talking about, it's a different kind of Leatherface, which wouldn't bother me as much if this wasn't supposed to be a direct sequel to the first one.
There you go. Yeah.
Again, a lot's happened. You know, I'm not the same person I was in 1970, whatever.
3. Yeah.
I wasn't alive then. Yeah.
Leatherface walks onto the bus. All the kids take a video, and we get the very famous
"Try anything and you're canceled, bro."
And everybody gets out their phones to live stream it.
Boy, that says a lot about. Oh, I didn't think about it.
Yeah.
It says a lot about society, huh?
Yeah.
It feels just one of those like cartoons you see, like AI generated things you see on Facebook, where it's people on their phones. Like, that's the real drugs, man. It's people on their phones. And it's just a guy approached you with a chainsaw, you're like, yeah, you're gonna get canceled. It just felt so forced.
I do feel like they had to have known that was a stupid line, and like it's stupid on purpose or something.
Yeah, I don't know if they're like, fuck it, like it's so dumb. I think it's funny. Like, I don't know.
Yeah,
like because people, like you said, people seem to enjoy it and go nuts for whatever. I think it's dumb. It makes, if you just had them just film it, that to me is a lot funnier and is a lot more interesting than like really underlining it by saying like, get what we're doing here.
Yeah.
And then when you see the comments on the things like, oh, I've been to haunted houses, they're scary. This is all so fake when people are dying. It's like, wow, yeah, we're so desensitized. Thank you, Texas Chainsaw number 9. Thank you.
Full mayhem ensues.
A legitimate Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah, I was totally gonna say that. Full on massacre, finally. So,
which is just done so badly. He's fine. His saw work is impeccable.
Yeah.
But it's more just like, you can just leave. There's windows everywhere, but they kind of like tap. I don't know how windows work. I'm just going to kind of tap on them a little bit. And there are people just kind of standing around waiting to get slaughtered for a lot of it, which is real
ninja fight type of thing.
Yeah. It's like, well, I guess now it's my turn. They got Dave.
Hey, all they need to do is YouTube a tutorial about how to pull down bus windows, and we could have it there.
Someone's trying to find the right. Oh, it's not the right model of bus. I looked up the Aerostar. And it's not these, and it's
right.
It's a Mr. Beast get people out of a bus challenge. Fuck that guy.
Oh gosh. But I did write in my notes. I was like, if this was Jason, would I like this more?
Yes,
I think I would. Just that tone.
I mean,
is different.
I guess I answered for you, but for me, yes.
Because the tone is like a little bit funnier anyway, and and maybe we've just ejected the grimness anyway at this point.
Well, I think it's just sort of the nature of what Texas Chainsaw is. I also think that walking through hashing people with a machete or whatever implement he has, it seems like the chainsaw takes time to do stuff.
Yeah,
like you're watching him like eviscerate a guy, like go through and take that time and leave.
Yeah.
Whereas Jason was just wah, wah, wah.
Right.
Done.
I did like him tossing a leg over his shoulder.
Yes. Yeah. And like the window thing wouldn't bother me as much if like later when the bank woman tries to escape, she just opens the window.
Oh yeah.
It's like she just does. Like it's not like someone's like, oh, it's stuck there. It's an old bus, or we had them sealed so no one could escape our deals.
Right.
I don't know. It was real stupid.
People are harder to influence if they're able to leave.
If they have oxygen.
Yes.
Yeah. So while this is happening, Lila hits the floor. Oh my God. This is the school shooting all over again.
Mm-hmm.
I am making eye contact with a dead body in front of me. I'm covered in blood. And this is just the worst thing that could ever happen to me in my life is happening again.
Yeah.
And it's over now. Okay.
Right.
And Melody comes in. It's like, let's go, and grabs her arm. And she's like, oh, okay. And they get up and they hide in the bathroom. That's what you did with that.
Right.
That's what you did with that emotional arc.
Sure.
Cool. You just went like, yeah, here it is again.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that crazy?
Next scene.
All right, now that's over.
Yeah. Before we move on, did you notice Leatherface mugging for the camera after he saws up the bank lady in half?
Yeah.
There was that one shot that I swear they just got him like mugging for the camera.
Ain't I a stinker?
He had such a stinker face on. And man, at this point, maybe I was just like, I knew where I was at. And I just thought like, well, I guess that is kind of a funny way to end this whole mess of a scene. But yeah, I wouldn't have chosen that necessarily.
That feels a little bit like the Leatherface from Part 3 Leatherface.
3, yeah.
Yeah. It's like a little bit sillier because you're getting rid of the comedy of 2 and to some extent 3. Like this whole movie just feels like, well, fuck all those other sequels. They didn't do it right. I'll show you how to fuck up a movie.
Yeah.
But so they hide in the bathroom and Leatherface starts like coming in after them. She sees the skylight in the bathroom. Lila does whatever's like, let's go out through there.
Yep.
We skipped over this at the beginning. Melody stabs Leatherface's arm with a chainsaw corkscrew.
Right.
She gets that at the beginning. But then she's like, hey, you can use this for your champagne. Now champagne doesn't need a corkscrew. But she stabs it now. So it's the corkscrew from the beginning and she gets out. And so we have this catharsis of her, all this tension that's built up from this horrible onslaught, this orgy of violence that could attack her. Like she's been victimized by Leatherface now for a few scenes. So we have this catharsis from the relief from certain doom. And if, she had any sort of emotional arc, this could be a moment where like, oh, actually now she's fighting back. She's been put upon this whole time, but now she's fighting back, or like had some of her agency back. But instead of that, the audience just gets the joy of recognizing a thing they've seen before.
Yeah.
That'll be just as good.
That's the most fun thing you can do.
That'll be so they go, oh, it's the thing from the beginning.
Yeah.
That was the payoff for that. Like it could have been anything in the room. It wasn't, who cares?
Right. Just a callback.
Yeah.
Speaking of empty callbacks, Sally Hardesty pulls up and just in time to grab them and put them in the back of her truck, takes off, shotgun at the ready, walks up the stairs. She finds Leatherface, who's sitting there all sad. She starts to rattle off the names of all the people from the first film, and she wants him to say that he knows what he did.
Say my name. Say you know me. Say you know what you did to my friends.
And of course, he picks up the chainsaw. She's upset, and he just kind of doesn't care and walks off. And it does remind me of my favorite scene in World's End,
where the guy is just explaining how he's like, that bully didn't even remember my name, and I've been harboring this the entire time.
Yeah.
So it's way more emotional in World's End.
Yeah.
Granted, than a Texas Chainsaw movie, I get that, but it's still the same concept that I do enjoy.
So here's a couple of questions. So he just went home?
Yeah.
Like he just, so it doesn't seem like the danger's there anymore. Seems like you could just go leave.
Yeah.
And I mean, I guess the idea is that Sally's supposed to be the cops showing up to help.
There you go. Yeah.
All this anger and I've been haunted by you for 40 years and this is my moment. And he's like, I don't know. See ya.
Yeah.
And just leaves, and she lets him leave.
Right. Yeah.
It's like there's a joke I've told many times over a year. It's one of those Shaggy Dog stories. That's a similar kind of thing, that a guy gets wronged by a clown, and then, after 20 minutes of me telling the joke, the punchline is "fuck you, clown." That's his moment of vengeance. And it's just that she's like, I got you, and then he just leaves.
Yeah.
And so then when she follows him, it's like, oh, I'm a badass now. It's like, you could have shot him at any moment there.
Right.
When he was walking away, does not matter. Like, it was such an awkward scene to have, because it's not like she was stopping him from doing something.
Sure.
It's just she followed him home, and he was like, it was halftime. Like he was having orange slices on his bed. It was like, all right,
yeah,
the second half, I'm really going to pull it together and kill these people.
Myself up.
Listening to the Kurt Russell speech from Miracle. You're like, all right, just got to get in the zone, Leatherface. Just the flow of action. It just was like, all right, let's stop to have this moment. Okay, now back to some action.
Because that was supposed to be like a heavy emotional moment, and because it was kind of biffed, like I didn't feel.
Yeah, because she's just been sort of on the way. We don't know anything about her.
I was going to say that was the other big thing, that she just hasn't had near enough screen time for me to like care about that, even that like in that basic level.
Yeah, they did no legwork for it. They just sort of expected the, speaking of symbols, that like you would understand what we're getting at here.
Yeah,
and,
Lila is all of a sudden in a Final Destination film because she says something like,
I was supposed to die in school that day. So death followed me here.
That's not how death works. Death has a bunch of intricate little things that will happen to you.
Right.
And then you'll fall off a roller coaster and explode and land you inside a toaster with your face in a toaster, and it'll burn your face.
And it'll be great.
Yeah. Be way more fun than this movie.
Sally blasts Leatherface with a shotgun, starts to take control of the situation, but then hears a chainsaw in the distance. And, I guess she did shoot him once. Big deal. Like, this was all like a little bit hard to even read, like with the blocking of this fight. He comes running out of an alley, and that part, I did kind of like that shot of him like running down the alley with the chainsaw.
Mm-hmm.
He finally looked like the big freight train that we're kind of afraid of, this force coming at me. He struggles with her and then saws her right in the gut. Picks her up by the saw, bathes in her blood, tosses her, then throws the chainsaw at the girls in the truck. So there we go, Sally Hardesty.
Yeah, so it's like your big standoff was like this emotional thing you're trying to lay down is just Scatman Crothers from The Shining.
I was literally about ready to say she got Scatmanned.
She got Scatman. Beep bop bop bada bo. But the thing is, like with Scatman Crothers, is it's like that's like all hope is lost. This was this special like empty thing, this is really just feels like she's there to show how like that Leatherface can't be stopped.
Yeah,
that he's now this homunculus, and it just felt like a really shitty thing to kind of build around. No, but it's Sally. She's back.
Right.
This is this emotional thing, and to be like, yeah, it doesn't really matter though, does it?
Yeah.
Even if you're trying to, you think like, well, we don't need the past. Doing it this way was like the shitty Ryan Johnson way to do it. No thanks.
Yeah. We get a close up of Sally disemboweled, laying in a garbage heap. So, I get that nihilism is, kind of fits with the original tone to a degree. But, you also kind of want better for Sally. She's literally just disemboweled, laying in a garbage heap at the end of this film.
Because it doesn't have that same kind of like that cold clinical distance from it. That's like that. This is just this is the horror of the world. Like this seems just deliberately mean to do that rather than like.
I mean, it's mean, but I just think it's also just not well thought out either. Like
that's really what it is.
I didn't feel like it was this gut punch of being like, see, no one can withstand him.
Yeah.
It just felt like messy and lazy.
Yeah, it just felt like it felt like it didn't matter that it was Sally. And I mean, you could make an argument that maybe that's the point, but it seems like you invested all this time into it. And this is supposed to be this character that has some sort of like history and whatever. it just feels like you wasted my time rather than it feels like you made a statement. It just feels like you wasted my time.
Yeah. Mel tells Leatherface that what we did to your mom, she deserved that for whatever reason. Lila shows up with a rifle, but when she's...
Because guns are cool now.
Yeah,
guns are
cool
fine now.
She pulls the trigger and it doesn't work. Sally manages to shoot Leatherface a couple of times from her trash heap. She's not dead.
Of course not. People can lose a lot of blood in this movie and
guts.
still function.
She loads up a shotgun and gives it to Lila, tells her
he'll never stop haunting you.
So I guess she does get like a little bit of a go with God passing of the torch instead of just dying in her own guts.
You didn't do anything. And it's like, oh, carry on my torch. Like, you need to fail for me.
Yeah.
Because I failed enough.
Hey, if you look up to me, you can also fail for 40 years and then get disemboweled in a trash heap.
Look at me now. This could all be yours.
The Hardesty way. Lila is now wielding the weapon of all her trauma or whatever, the gun. She's walking into a movie theater. And are we supposed to take something from that? Is that them being clever? I refuse to give it too much thought.
Yeah, I don't care.
Yeah. She pulls back a curtain and the chainsaw is behind it, causing a distraction. So again, Leatherface is now a tricksy little monkey.
Yeah, that crafty old Leatherface.
Yeah, just, you know him. He's always hiding stuff and booby trapping and, you know, that kind of thing.
Little sneaky man.
Leatherface jumps out, knocks her into some water. She gets out, goes for a gun, but Leatherface slides the saw along the floor. And now I feel like he's just getting like Metroid upgrades or something. Like he learned how to like take his weapon and like roll it, you know.
It's got the screw attack.
Yeah. He knows how to use those batarangs in 3 different ways and, you know, Arkham or whatever. Just like, come on.
Stop making these power-ups for Leatherface. Who's doing this?
Instead of eating a chicken leg, he eats like a face. Or like oh yeah, no cannibalism in this movie at all.
No,
right?
Nope, doesn't even enter into it. It hasn't been around for a while.
That's true.
It's very frustrating.
Yeah. Just when he's about ready to get sawed up, Mel jumps on his back to distract him and then goes in to like saw her up. Lila shows up with a shotgun, fires twice and smiles, which again, guns are cool now.
Guns are cool. Yeah.
Mel uses the chainsaw on him, uppercuts him into the water, uppercuts him with the chainsaw. She's small, he's huge.
Yeah, it's fine.
Whatever.
It looks cool.
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
Just gonna say, John, I haven't stood up and cheered for a moment like that since Flash entered the Speed Force. So I don't know, you know, when the Oscars honored that, you know, it was a real stand up and cheer moment, you know, when she uppercuts him.
Right. Would they need to honor this? Yeah.
Anyway, she saws him and he sinks below the water. And of course, we don't see anything. The ending rolls on. This movie's only an hour and 23 minutes, but man, keeps going. Rolls on.
It is so long. Yeah.
2 sisters are in a fancy car. They engage the autopilot. They make sure to see that.
Yep.
I do like them cutting to all the amenities inside the car for some reason, because it does feel like, look at these fancy city folk. Like, you know, it's a little different from the old like nastiness of the Texas Chainsaw House when you get all the close-ups and stuff.
Well, it's funny because if you do the Carol Clover Final Girl thing, like this like, well, now we've wrested the power and control away from our attacker, and now we're gonna just have a car drive for us.
Yeah.
Like, that's what I'm gonna do with my power. It's not like use any agency or whatever. I'm still just gonna hang out, and let other things happen,
right?
And just be there. And it's like, that's not that great.
Yeah, and just hang out there. At least Sally in the first one jumps in, like she has a helper, like, because she is in no position to help herself there.
Right. Yeah.
Leatherface, of course, appears, pulls Mel out through the window. Lila watches through the sunroof as Leatherface decapitates her sister, as the car just drives away with her screaming at him.
Yeah, it just felt like needlessly, like, nihilistic isn't the right word, but just sort of like, I don't know, like, this is how a Terrifier movie would end, you know, like it's just mean. Yeah. It's like, that doesn't, I don't feel good about it. I don't feel like struck by it anyway, other than just like, oh, I guess we needed a final a final thing.
Mm-hmm.
Although it would have been hilarious because also the whole time I'm just thinking about the autopilot and that the car is going to crash.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
It'd be funny if it just like did one of those like Terry Gilliam just immediately like just like whoop, just flip.
Yes.
And that's how the movie ended. I would actually be like, okay.
Yeah. Funny. Yeah.
Yeah. He just cuts off her head and then, oh, I got to do my chainsaw dance.
Yep.
Remember the chainsaw dance at the end?
Yeah. Does that.
Sure.
You watch post-credit scene?
Yep.
Just walks up to a house. I mean, it's the Sawyer house, but you know.
There's part of me that wonders, like, so did the people that rebuilt it for Leatherface? We're like, well, look, we built the house.
Yes.
We got to use it. You know, we're not going to tear it down.
What, you're getting one wide shot out of this? That's it?
Yeah, we need to get value out of this house. Yeah, so Leatherface is still around and like, oh no, he's back home now, which is
that means what?
It does like no. So if the idea is that like Texas is this decimated, late stage capitalism has wiped out Texas, he's going to an even more remote part of Texas to do what?
Right. Well, he doesn't want to hang out in that. He doesn't want to hang out in Harlow because people will be on his tail at that point.
That's
Even
true.
the cops
Yeah.
might have to be like, all right, look, we finally got to take this guy in.
Yeah. Let's not do. Let's not go check out the place. These murders seem very similar to this other thing. Let's not go look into that.
Well, I mean, that's where you could get a, whatever that movie was that picked up seconds after this. So he gets home, puts on a fresh coat of makeup, and all of a sudden the Harlow cops are beating down his door again.
Or like, and then we can do the very like politically minded, like very on the nose thing where all the cops that are supposed to go get him, turns out they all previously worked at the Crystal Lake police force.
Yes.
And they're completely incompetent there and lazy. But then like, because of the way the policing works, they're able to just kind of, they got new jobs down in Texas.
they didn't get,
their incompetence just got shuffled around. And so now they're like, we're not doing anything.
Yeah.
And then that's the movie.
Right.
It's like Rebel Ridge, but no one meets anybody and they just kind of go about their business.
There you go. Man, that Rebel Ridge, that was a good movie.
Good stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's honor our dead first. Jenny, played by Alice Krieger, died of a heart attack. Unnamed deputy, wrist snapped, stabbed in neck with own bones. Sheriff Hathaway, played by William Hope, shot in the back while driving. Ruth, played by Nell Hudson, stabbed in the stomach. Dante, played by Jacob Lattimore, hacked in the face. Richter, played by Mo Dunford, leg broken with mallet, head smashed into glass shards, skull crushed over and over with mallet. Unnamed bus driver, decapitated. Unnamed woman, back of neck shredded by chainsaw. Unnamed man, vertically cut in half by chainsaw. Unnamed man, cut in the back by chainsaw. 11 additional unnamed people massacred by chainsaw on bus. Catherine, played by Jessica Elaine, cut in half by chainsaw. Sally Hardesty, played by Alan Foer, stabbed through stomach with chainsaw, lifted overhead, and thrown into garbage by Leatherface. Melody, played by Sarah Yarkin, decapitated by Leatherface. Yeah, I got my Netflix back because we were going to watch this. I haven't had it in like a year and a half or so. I think since I watched The Sandman or whenever that came out. But I was like, ooh, great. I'll watch Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And then the next night I was like, ooh, and that Rebel Ridge looks really good. So I fired that up.
Maybe I can get something good out of Netflix.
I will suggest following up with that just as a little extra bit here. But yeah, we're done now, John. 9 Texas Chainsaw movies. I'm, again, glad we did it. How far they have fallen in a lot of ways, but we will talk about that on our wrap up next week. Of course, I feel like there's going to be a lot to go through on that one. But yeah, I'm glad to be done with these.
I'm glad to be done too. Like it's been very frustrating because it seems like there's a constant I like we always talk about that, do you take big swings? Do you just do it the same? But there seems to me like so often there just seems like a fundamental misunderstanding of what made the first movie work.
Yeah.
They just keep trying it from all these really dumb angles and it's just whatever.
Yeah.
This one might be my least favorite.
Oh, I think because for me it is absolutely.
Yeah, because like it just and some of it's you get further enough away from some of this stuff and you get rose-colored glasses about maybe it wasn't that bad. Some of those like they at least had I think Dan said it on the Texas Chainsaw: The Next Generation, like that it's its own thing, like it's got its own voice, it's whatever. Whereas this just kind of feels this mealy mouthed, crapped out version of this, and I mean even. And I don't want to spoil all the wrap up yet, but it's just like this was my least favorite version of Leatherface.
Oh, exactly. Yeah, we barely talked about the Leatherface getup himself, just the greasy blood drenched in blood half the time. Just I know what they were going for, but it also didn't work. They just wanted to make him Michael Myers from David Gordon Green's Halloween and just make him a slasher. Yeah,
and I think that's not. I think that's a too simplistic point of view of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Well, the people making it, like Kim Henkel, might tell you, like, "No, we just want to chop people up."
Yeah,
it's not the movie that you ended up making. Like, there's more to it than that.
Yeah,
and this one went the other way, where it's like we're gonna try to throw all these hoity-toity ideas at it, but we're just making a slasher movie.
Totally. All right, everyone. Well, that's gonna do it for Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2022. We were pretty hard on this one, but I don't know if anybody liked it. By all means, let us know what worked for you. We tend to talk about stuff on the Instagram just a little bit. I'm not the best at checking that, but that's where people kind of hang out a little bit and talk about their impressions of these films. So join us over there. Maybe leave us one of those 5-star reviews as we're getting into the Halloween season, and maybe we can get more people who are going to be looking for scary movie podcasts to check out, as they sort of slum it for the 1 month. No, all are welcome. All are welcome all the time.
Gentrifuckers.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't come in listening to our podcast. That's only for locals.
Local people. All right, so next week we will check out the wrap up. We're going to talk about all 9 as we do, and talk about what we liked, what we didn't like, and all that kind of stuff. And then we'll let you know where we're headed after that. Probably have a couple of fun extras during the Halloween season too. But until then, you can find us at This May Hurt a Bit Pod on Instagram, Hurt a Bit Pod on YouTube, and you can email us at thismayhurtabitpod@gmail.com. So until next week for the wrap up, good night.
Good night.
This has been a Caretaker Press production. It was produced by James Strayer and edited by John C. Myers. Logo by Ethan Kimberling and music by Michael Arthur Holloway, who you can find on Bandcamp. Follow us on Instagram at thismayhurtabitpod and email us at thismayhurtabitpod@gmail.com. Give us a 5-star review over on your favorite podcast app, and we'll see you next time.